The medical technology centuries ahead of what they have now. We've already been doing it. If it wasn't for you and me, this planet would be in flames. All we have to do is welcome Earth into our empire.
At its height, the Viltrum Empire spanned an entire galaxy. Even a single Viltrumite being sent to a planet is often considered a death sentence. This is all thanks to their absurdly powerful biology, granting them superhuman strength, flight, near invulnerability, and rapid regeneration. But what happens when they come up against another galactic empire? One bound together by religion, with access to hyper-advanced technology, and consisting of dozens of alien species. Today we're going to explore whether the Viltrumites could conquer the Covenant from Halo. Before diving into this matchup, let's first set some ground rules. We'll be taking the Viltrum Empire as it stands at the beginning of the Invincible series. That means characters like Omni-Man, Conquest, and Thrag, alongside roughly 50 other pure-blooded Viltrumites. On the other side, we'll be examining the Covenant as they were just before the Human Covenant War around the year 2525. There will be no access to Halo arrays or other Forerunner artifacts beyond what the Covenant already had at that time. Viltrum invades Covenant-controlled space with the goal of conquest. The Viltrumites won't hold back, however. They may even annihilate entire planets as a show of force. Meanwhile, the Covenant will fight to defend their territory from their invaders. Given both sides' unshakable ideologies, diplomacy is strictly off the table. Just as a heads up, this video will contain spoilers for the end of Invincible Season 3, and also one major comic book spoiler. I'll flag that one in particular again before we get to it, but if you've watched up to the end of Season 3, you should be good to follow my main arguments. Now that we've set the groundwork, let's dive into the capabilities of both sides, starting with the Viltrumites. As I already said, Viltrumites are incredibly strong. Outwardly, they are almost indistinguishable from humans. However, internally, their bodies are vastly different. Viltrumites have something called smart atoms. These provide the Viltrumites with their powers of flight, super strength, speed, and enhanced durability, to name a few. Viltrumites also inherently possess extremely dense musculature and unbelievably efficient cellular physiology. These factors grant them physical stats far beyond any member of the Covenant. Even the strongest species of the Covenant, like brutes or hunters, which are commonly able to physically harm Spartans in full Mjolnir, would pale in comparison to the average Viltrumite. Another byproduct of their insane biology is their ability to regenerate. Viltrumites have been shown in both the comics and the show to heal from life-threatening injuries at ridiculous speeds. Broken bones, cracked skulls, and even near dismemberment. All of these could be healed in a matter of days or weeks. Typically, the only ways to ensure a Viltrumite is dead is either decapitation or complete evisceration of their body. As I already said, Viltrumites are also capable of flight. They can even reach speeds that allow them to cross entire galaxies. We know that Omni-Man was able to fly to Thraxa in about a month, which was stated to be in a different galaxy. In real life, the closest galaxy to our own is 25,000 light-years away, meaning that Viltrumites are capable of faster-than-light travel, which would allow them to traverse Covenant space with relative ease. However, this does not necessarily mean they could outspeed Covenant ships. We know that the slip space capability of Covenant vessels is approximately 1,368 light-years per day, making them just a bit faster than Nolan, who I might add is most definitely faster than your average Viltrumite. Additionally, when in slip space, vessels are in a separate dimension, so unless they were followed in, they would be able to escape fights with Viltrumites for a tactical retreat. Let's also touch on reaction time. Some people assume Viltrumite combat speed would match their travel speed, but that's not really supported throughout the show. Viltrumites have been hit by bullets and even slower projectiles numerous times, which implies their reaction time, while exceptional, isn't on the same faster-than-light scale. That said, they're still insanely fast in combat. In Season 1, Omni-Man tracks and intercepts a fighter jet mid-flight, a feat that suggests reaction time speeds in the Mach range, which still massively outclasses anything the Covenant can offer. As for destructive capability, Viltrumites like Omni-Man are able to solo destroy entire planets with ease. The fight between Mark and Conquest in Season 3 destroys multiple city blocks, collapses buildings, and creates localized earthquakes, and that's just two of them battling each other. When you bring in the full force of 50 Viltrumites, plus heavy hitters like Thrag, Nolan, and Conquest, pretty much nothing could stand in their way. So in short, the Viltrumites are fast, nearly indestructible, faster than light-capable warriors who could fly through ships, regenerate from near death, and destroy planets. Any empire, even the Covenant, would struggle to face them head-on. But now let's switch sides and take a look at the Covenant's military and technological capabilities, and see how they might stack up. The Covenant is a massive theocratic empire composed of multiple intelligent alien species, all unified by a fanatical religion centered on the worship of the Forerunners. At its height, the Covenant controlled a significant portion of the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy, encompassing thousands of star systems. Now, the term star system is a bit vague. It could mean anything from a single resource poor planet to a system rich with multiple habitable worlds. While the exact number isn't defined, we can conservatively estimate that the Covenant governs over 2,000 star systems, each with varying strategic value. There are also fringe outposts and exploratory forces scattered throughout the galaxy, giving them access to even broader galactic resources in times of war. Now, as per the military might of the Covenant, let's first examine their ship capabilities. No exact numbers are ever given regarding the actual size of the Covenant's entire fleet, but we can use some tidbits of information to discern its general magnitude. We know of a few fleet sizes. For instance, the Prophet of Truth considered a fleet of over 500 warships and a 30-kilometer-long space station, the Unyielding Hierophant, insignificant. He even covered up its destruction without issue, implying the Covenant had vast reserves beyond that. The Covenant also built a massive 350-kilometer by 500-kilometer space station, High Charity, over just 147 years. And that was in their early history, around 852 BCE. With over 3,000 years of expansion since then, their production capabilities and technological sophistication would have scaled dramatically. All of this suggests that the total combined ship capabilities of the Covenant to be tens of thousands of warships, with a strong capability to mass-produce more ships if needed. These warships I'm talking about would include things like carriers, cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and so on. All of these ships vary in size from hundreds of meters to kilometers in length. But more important for their battle against Viltrumites is their destructive capacity. Destroyers, for one, are armed with multiple point defense pulse laser turrets, energy projectors, plasma turrets, and a full complement of Seraph fighters. Furthermore, weapon systems of the Covenant destroyers and other armed ships are remarked by Captain Keyes as being able to turn UNSC ships into Swiss cheese. For reference, UNSC ships, although lacking shielding, are reinforced with high-grade titanium-50 plating, a more advanced and hardy form of titanium, which is built nearly a meter thick in many of the ship's hulls. Another point I want to make is just how quickly the Covenant is able to build more ships. The Covenant are quite adept at resource extraction, being able to hollow out entire moons for their materials, and utilizing whole planets for their shipbuilding operations. And they have no shortage of available resources. The ship capabilities of Covenant vessels puts nearly everywhere in the galaxy within their reach. The creation of Covenant ships and nearly all military gear from weapons to armor is done via massive assembly forges. These operate by way of programmable clouds of nanomachines. The forge is fed raw feedstock and given a template known as a design pattern, which then assembles the desired item piece by piece. The construction of items is akin to growing, like a plant or fungus. These advanced manufacturing methods allowed the Covenant Empire to forego standardization within their armaments and allowed for efficient and custom mass production of military gear. One of the Covenant's greatest strengths is the sheer variety of species that make up its empire. Each race brings with it its own unique biology and tactical advantages to the battlefield. Sankhili, also known as elites, are the Covenant's primary warrior species, standing over 7 feet tall and weighing around 300 pounds. Trained from birth, Sankhili excel in close quarters combat and tactical command. They're stronger, faster, and more durable than humans, and often follow a strict warrior code. It's not hard to imagine them respecting the Viltrumites as worthy foes, even in a war. Grunts individually are weak and not especially intelligent, but what they lack in power they make up for in numbers. There are perhaps billions of Ungoi in the Covenant, and they reproduce rapidly. Armed with plasma pistols, they make up the bulk of the Covenant's infantry. Megalogolo, or hunters, are actually colonies of small worm-like creatures called Logolo, which merge to form massive, heavily armored tanks known as hunters, which wield a fuel rod cannon and massive shields. Logolo could also integrate into Covenant vehicles, becoming the neural interface for scarabs and other such armaments. Brutes, while less disciplined than Sangheili, are incredibly strong, often wielding Brute-specific weapons like the Gravity Hammer. In the Halo books, they are often regarded as having comparable strength to that of Spartan 2s in full Mjolnir, making them a deadly foe in close combat. The Sanshayum, or Prophets, are the religious and political leaders of the Covenant. While physically frail, the Prophets wield immense authority and strategic oversight over the Covenant. They command fleets, control access to foreigner tech, and can direct massive wartime mobilizations. Altogether, the Covenant fields a military force that is estimated between 60 to 70 billion individuals, although it could be much larger. This immense scale, combined with advanced technology and species specialization, gives them a staggering advantage in numbers, flexibility, and logistics against an invading force as small as 50 Viltrumites. Now that we've thoroughly discussed both factions, how would a matchup between these two empires play out? To get into the main points of my argument, we first have to discuss an important detail regarding this matchup. Is there anything the Covenant can use to even damage a Viltrumite? We see Viltrumites tanking explosions, flying straight through ships, being used as a battering ram against an entire subway system, and from all of these, they seem to come out unscathed. Even if the Covenant could damage a Viltrumite, they would need to ensure they were killed in an initial engagement. Viltrumites can fully heal and adapt from some serious injuries in a matter of days. The Covenant being able to combat Viltrumites hinges on the advanced plasma technology we see deployed across their arsenal. As seen during the end of Invincible Season 3, Viltrumites are vulnerable to heat-based attacks. Adam Eve's Energy Blast when fighting Conquest was able to strip the skin off his body and deal a significant amount of damage. We know that Conquest is on the upper echelon of Viltrumites, meaning an average Viltrumite would take much more damage or even die from an attack on this caliber. Common Covenant armaments include numerous plasma-type weaponry. Their bullets can reach temperatures of 3,000 degrees Celsius and commonly cut through some of the strongest armor in the Halo universe. Now, these are just the small arms of the Covenant, ubiquitous across the military. Even grunts are equipped with plasma pistols. Although exact numbers are never stated, we can assume that the destructive force of vehicle and ship-based heavy weaponry is much greater than that of the Covenant's small arms. We know that Wraiths, Seraphs, and Scarabs all utilize plasma and could carry enough heat to heavily damage and perhaps even kill weaker Viltrumites. If multiple Covenant units, alongside their heavy vehicles, could target individual Viltrumites, it's possible that they could take them down. However, these weapons are not going to do much of anything against the stronger Viltrumites like Thrag or Conquest. They could either dodge or simply tank most of these attacks. Which brings me to my next point. For this, we'll have to go over what I would consider to be a major spoiler for the end of the Invincible series. So if you haven't read the comics or don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead to the timestamp on screen now. Near the end of Invincible, when Thrag and Mark have their final fight, Mark throws Thrag into the sun in an attempt to weaken him. At the surface or photosphere of the sun, we can see Thrag is significantly weakened, but not seriously damaged. This changes, however, when Mark pushes him deeper into the star. Eventually, we see his entire skin burn off, and after exchanging blows with Mark, he finally succumbs to the damage and is vaporized by the sun. Now, the photosphere is approximately 5,500 degrees Celsius. We know that Thrag was only really damaged deeper into the sun, where it would be hotter. By exactly how much Mark pushed him, we don't know. Given this, I think it's fair to say that the small arms of the Covenant, and even bigger vehicles like Wraiths and Scarabs, would do minimal damage to him. This changes, however, when we start to talk about Covenant vessel weaponry, which, as we already established, would be present across the approximately 10,000 strong Covenant fleet. Of particular importance is glassing beams. To understand just how powerful these are, we need to go over some calculations. The defining feature of a glassing beam is naturally the glassy surface it leaves behind. To get a baseline for the energy required, we can look at a real-world example. For this, we'll take the Manhattan Project's Trinity nuclear test, which caused the formation of glass at its epicenter. Thus, the baseline yield needed to form glass under similar conditions would be roughly 25 kilotons of TNT. So we know that's the amount of energy needed to produce this glassing effect. But there is an extra layer to consider. Unlike a nuclear bomb, a glassing beam delivers energy continuously rather than in a single instant. So instead of total yield, we need to examine power output. Thus, the glassing beam would deliver 25 kilotons of TNT per second. This means that the glassing beam would be able to deliver the power of a nuclear bomb every single second. If that doesn't sound like a weapon capable of beating Viltrumites, I don't know what is. But for some more evidence to my point, let's compare that number to the output of the sun. If we convert the energy output of our glassing beam into watts, and then compare that to the output of the sun's photosphere, we see that it is 0.00000000271 times the total energy output of the sun's surface. If we convert this to a portion of the sun's surface, it comes out to 1.65 kilometers squared. So in comparison to our discussion of the earlier Viltrumite, we would be talking about an increase in heat over 1,000-fold. I think this makes it fair to say a glassing beam could easily kill Viltrumites and would even be able to kill the strongest of Viltrumites, Thrag. But how would any Viltrumite, let alone Thrag, get caught up in a glassing beam? Well, that part I think is quite simple for a few reasons. First, there are thousands of Covenant ships with glassing beam capabilities, and given the resources of the Covenant, many more can be produced. Second, many Covenant vessels have cloaking technology, allowing for stealthy approach and ambush. Third, the shielding of Covenant vessels makes it hard to simply ram straight through. The actual hull of Covenant vessels, despite being made of sturdy nanoaluminate, could probably be rammed through by a Viltrumite. But shielding of Covenant vessels is much stronger than that. Covenant vessels are stated as being able to withstand several Mach rounds, which are shot at 40% the speed of light and weigh upwards of 600 tons. So for a Viltrumite to ram through a ship, they would most definitely need to speed up to near their interstellar travel speed, something that they can't just instantly do. All of these factors give the Covenant a lot of opportunities to catch the Viltrumites off guard and simply glass them to death. So how does this matchup go about? Well, given the Covenant's vast empire and the sheer amount of plasma and glassing beam weaponry, I would find it hard to see how just 50 Viltrumites could conquer all of Covenant space. Of course, this isn't going to be an easy fight. Viltrumites can easily destroy planets, and I would expect them to wipe out a huge amount of Covenant vessels and worlds before their defeat. But the sheer amount of Covenant planets, and given their technological capabilities, at some point they're going to be swarmed and taken out by the Covenant's military. Thrag, Conquest, and Omni-Man would definitely make this fight much harder. They're all Viltrumites with hundreds if not thousands of years of combat, so their ability to ambush and destroy Covenant fleets would make them a challenging foe. But again, eventually they're going to be overwhelmed. Even someone like Thrag can't hold his ground against the heavy weaponry of hundreds of Covenant vessels. Thus, I would give this matchup to the Covenant 9 times out of 10. I think the Covenant will be able to kill all the invading Viltrumites. Maybe the Viltrumites can get lucky and systematically destroy Covenant worlds and vessels, but given they aim to conquer and not simply kill, I don't see how they can take on the entirety of the Covenant. Anyways, that's my opinion on the matter. Obviously, this matchup is hard to really quantify, given these two empires come from completely separate fictional universes. Let me know if you think the matchup would go differently in the comments down below. I'd love to hear some of your arguments for why one side would win over the other. Personally, I'm a big fan of both Halo and Invincible, and in making this video, I did try my best to just look objectively at the scaling of the two, rather than playing into my favor. But that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.